In life, especially in your dating life, your social life, even your financial life, inner game is more important than outer game. Inner game is more important than outer game. And in this video, I'm going to show you 5 secret killers of your inner game around women. Hi, my name is Bobby Rio, and I want to talk in this video specifically about the 5 secret things that are killing your inner game. Because here's the deal. I get asked this question all the time from my coaching clients when they start studying dating advice and how to make themselves more attractive or how to play the quote unquote game with a woman. One of the things they always say is it always going to be this complicated? You know, when do I stop thinking about it so much? When does it get easier? And my answer is always the same. My answer is, if you get this right, if your inner game is nailed, right? If your inner game is perfected, your outer game is just a natural byproduct of that. You no longer have to think about all these different concepts. You don't have to think about, you know, what to do or how to quote unquote play the game, because you're doing it naturally. And a lot of inner game has to do with self-confidence, self-esteem, and the things that are throwing you off your game without even realizing it. And that's what I want to discuss today. So one of the first things that I really believe I see over and over again with my clients is seeking validation, okay? Seeking validation. Now, one of the things that is sort of a common denominator around guys that come to me, specifically guys that hire me in a one-on-one scenario, is very often they are in a place called emotional quicksand. It's where you're so wrapped up in a woman that she's all you can think about. She's all you can talk about. You're constantly in your head analyzing it, looking, replaying things. If the woman has already pulled away, you're craving closure on it, right? You want some clarity. You can't think about anything else until you get this closure around this situation. And a lot of guys, when they first come to me, they think it's because this woman was so perfect. That's always their first, we just have so much in common. She's beautiful, she's this, she's that. And one of the things, the first thing that I always do to them is I try to explain to them that this feeling of emotional quicksand does not come because the woman was so perfect and you can't live without her. That has nothing to do with it. What it has to do, everything to do with, is this: validation. When you meet a woman, and especially if she's very attractive, especially if you mentally believe that she's out of your league, right? You meet a woman and you just kind of see her as being a little out of your league, and you get along with her, and she's got this great personality, and you think she's wonderful, and then she likes you back. When that happens, your validation skyrockets. You feel special. And that's the feeling that you become addicted to. You feel special that this woman who, you see as being kind of above you, right? Kind of out of your league, she's choosing you. She's attracted to you. And that fills you up with validation. It fills you up with this feeling of I'm special. The problem is that when the woman pulls away, that feeling disappears. It now becomes a hole within you. And you kind of in your mind, you think, I'm chasing after this woman because she's so special. But what you're actually chasing is that feeling of you being special, right? You're chasing that feeling. And there's some issues with validation, but I want to talk about other ways that you're chasing validation, right? Validation could come in a variety of ways. Sometimes we get attached to an outcome because of the validation it's going to give us from maybe our group of friends. So maybe you've been in a situation where you wanted a woman, and if you were honest with yourself, part of the reason that you wanted her so badly was because of the status it was going to give you, right? It was this mentality of, my friends will finally respect me, especially if you've been the guy in the friend zone, and now, they teased you or whatever, and now this woman comes into your life, and now you're going, if I get her, my friends are going to give me the respect that I want from them, right? And you might not be thinking this on a conscious level, but these are the feelings, right? This is the craving that we all have to some degree. The problem is, it's okay to want validation. The problem is when it becomes dictating your life. We do this in other ways too. We do this when we get into a conversation with somebody. And maybe there's certain areas that we feel proud or we feel confident in. And we think that that's going to make us important, okay? There's been times maybe where maybe you're good at music, right? You're a good musician, or maybe you travel a lot. And you're in a conversation with somebody and you feel like you've got to bring the conversation to that topic so that you can get that validation. So that person can go, oh, wow, you've traveled to so many places. That's so cool. Or, wow, you play music. That's so cool. It's like a drug, right? And the problem is there's a handful of problems. One problem is that it's reinforcing this idea, and this is what essentially is killing your inner game. It's reinforcing this idea that I'm not good enough, right? I'm not good enough. The reason that you get so upset when a woman who finds you special pulls away is because secretly when that validation is gone, you go, I'm not good enough, right? I must not be good enough. See, I was right, I'm not good enough. The reason why you're trying to move a conversation to a topic that you're comfortable in, right? Maybe if you're really into your job and you're confident, you want to move it there because you feel like I'm not good enough if I'm talking about these other things, right? I don't have a natural ability to just somebody to want to be with me, so I have to impress them with things. I have to make them see that I'm cool, that I travel, that I do that. And you're chasing this validation, okay? You're chasing this validation. And ultimately what happens is the more you chase the validation, the more unattractive you actually become, right? We've all been in emotional quicksand. Maybe we've had a friend in emotional quicksand, and that guy is the last thing from attractive because he's chasing validation. He wants that validation back, and it's making him more and more unattractive. We've seen the guy who tries to weave in the car he drives into a conversation because he wants that validation, and it's apparent to everybody, and it makes him less attractive. Not only does it make him less attractive, but it makes him less fun because in his mind, instead of enjoying the conversation, which gets your outer game better, if you're actually present in a conversation, if you're looking for validation, you're actually outside of the conversation. You're not actually in it. You're not like present in it. And it makes you a more boring person when you go into a conversation looking for validation. So one of the things I always tell people, the first thing, and whether a guy's in emotional quicksand or whatever, is awareness, right? You have to be aware. Why am I really chasing this woman? Why is it that when I go into a conversation, I feel the need to talk about certain things? Because when you become aware of something, you can at least acknowledge what's going on. You can go, yeah, you know what? This is kind of true. I'm not actually chasing this woman because she's the most perfect girl in the entire world. I'm chasing her because it felt really good when she was into me, and now she's not into me, and it's really fucking confusing, and it's making me feel crappy that she's like lost interest in me, and I need to get that back. That's what you're really chasing, and you have to be aware of that. So let's move on to the next one. So the next secret killer of inner game is inhibition, okay? And inhibition is any time that you restrain yourself from a natural instinct or a natural desire, all right? And this is something that was, it's the inner resistance, right? It's that inner resistance that stops you from doing something you want to do. And for me, my entire life, this right here is what I battled because I am a natural introvert. I tend to be an introverted. And for me, things like something as simple growing up as raising my hand in class, right? I would know the answer. I would know that the teacher was grading me on my class participation, but I just, for whatever reason, couldn't get myself to raise my hand. There was times where I wanted to get better at public speaking, and I went to Toastmasters. And it's very volunteer-based, meaning you can go there and you can either sit in the back or you can volunteer to give a speech. And I would go there week after week after week, and I would sit there and they'd go, anybody want to speak this week? And I'd always be like, raise your fucking hand. And my hand would just be like glued there, and the thing would go. And I'd hate myself, right? I'd leave, I'd be in the parking lot and go, why didn't you just volunteer? Why didn't you do it, right? And we've all been in situations like that, whether it's a woman that you want to start a conversation with, right? And you just have this resistance to doing it. You see her, you know, on a psychological level, you know, hey, I'm not gonna get rejected, but there's just something stopping you from doing it, right? It's that inner resistance. Now, the problem is, the more you give in to that inner resistance, the more it becomes your story, right? So for me, because I was introverted and because I was, you know, not raising my hand in class, and then I was not, you know, public speaking, and then I was shy around women, it became the story I told myself. It became, that's just how I am. I'm just, you know, I'm just a shy guy. I'm introverted, right? And I use that sort of as a crutch. And a lot of us do that. We form a crutch because instead of acknowledging that it's like resistance that's stopping us from wanting to do it, and going, hey, like, why am I really not doing this? It's not any real reason. We assign a reason to it. So the more that we don't do it, though, the more helpless we begin to feel. And that's really, really why your inner game goes to shit, is because you begin to feel helpless. You begin to feel like, you know, you just, nah, I just can't do it, right? I can't do it. And when you feel like you can't do something, what does that do to your self-esteem? Boom, right to the floor. So how do you overcome inhibition? Listen, this was something that I worked on in a variety of ways, and I've got a ton of tools. But one thing that I can give you right now is one thing, and it's actually something I used, the other day, is I don't like confrontational phone calls, right? So if I have to call somebody and I know it's going to be like, you know, let's say it's one of my employees and I have to fire him, or it's, you know, the other day it was a contractor that was at my house doing work and I wasn't happy with it, and I had to call him up and tell him I wasn't happy. And there was something that was like not letting me make the call. I kept putting it off, and I'm like, why am I putting this call off? So the tool that I used, and the tool that I recommend trying out, is called pump yourself up for the pain, right? Get pumped for the pain. And what that means is, and I learned this from a football player once who was probably an average football player, and then he all of a sudden got really, really good. And they said, well, what changed? And he said, I used to fear when I had the ball that I would be running in, I was going to get tackled, and I was going to get hurt, and, you know, I feared like all the, you know, the people coming at me. And he said that he changed it, where he started, as you know, in that 30 seconds before the play was called, he would imagine running into those people that were going to tackle him, right? He was like, I want that. I want that pain. And when he got the ball, he would just run towards them and, you know, break through, obviously. And that's something that, what I realized you can do in anything, right? So for me, I mentioned the other day, I had to make an uncomfortable phone call, and I was putting it off, and then I go, you know what? I imagined it. Like I kind of leaned into it and pictured like the uncomfortableness of it, and like sort of like a battle that I was going to go into. And I just picked up the phone and called, right? And a lot of times you can do that, whether it's, you know, approaching somebody that you're a little hesitant to approach. There's a lot of ways you can do that, but just think of this idea of getting pumped for the pain, right? Psych yourself up for it. So the third killer of inner game in your dating life and just in life in general is victimhood. Victimhood. And we are living in a culture that is beginning to celebrate victimhood, right? And I think that there's a downside to that. The downside is that by doing that, we make somebody else responsible for our life. And there's a lot of ways and I see this, right? You know, YouTube comment section is the king of victimhood. I'll put out a video and I'll teach something, and then there'll be comments that go, yeah, but I'm 5'4" and this won't work for me. Or they'll be like, yeah, I'm old and women only like young guys, or women only like rich guys, or, you know, there's a million things that guys will tell themselves to play the part of the victim. But there's no benefit in being the victim, right? Like, there's no benefit in getting somebody to go, oh, that's so bad. Oh, I'm so sorry for you, right? You don't want to be the victim, right? Being short does not make you a victim. Being old does not make you a victim. Going through a trauma in your life, right? You know, our childhood, there's elements. I remember When when I was in high school, I went to this party once, and I did something that completely embarrassed myself. And it was I was like a sophomore, and there was a senior that every single day of school would just he would just remind me about how much of an ass I made of myself. And there was two ways to look at that, right? You can be the victim, and you can go through life and then feel, man, I'm just not good at going to party. Or you can go, fuck that guy, I'm going to show him. And I realized in life that taking that approach, right? There's this saying, living well is the best revenge. And when it comes to victimhood, that's the best thing you can do, right? So whether you're playing victim, a lot of people will play victim with, it's the government's fault, right? It's the left's fault. It's the right's fault. It's the big bank's fault. It's the corporation's fault. Everybody has a reason why their life is not where they want to be, right? And when you place that reason in somebody else's hands, you're giving away the power to change it. And that ultimately will kill your inner game, because how do you believe that you have the ability to make something happen if you think, well, women don't like old guys or women don't like short guys, so I'm off the hook, right? I'm off the hook. It's her fault. So how do you face this, right? How do you deal with this victimhood mentality? One of the things I always tell people is, the first thing you will always want to ask yourself when you're playing the victim is this true of all people? Is this true in every situation? Because for me, as I mentioned earlier, I grew up as an introvert, and that was like the story I told myself for a really long time. Well, I'm introverted. I'm this personality type, right? And I used that to be almost as a victim. Like I was just born an introvert. And when I was struggling with making money or with women, that was my victim. Well, I wasn't born good with conversations. I can't talk as well as those people. So of course I'm not as good with women, or I'm not making as much money. But then one of the things that really changed my perception around this was going, well, is this true of all people? And I started noticing, well, that person that has a really cool, attractive girlfriend, he's very introverted. And this person over here who's really rich and successful, he's introverted. And this guy, one of the things that got me over the hump of teaching and stuff and getting up on stages was this idea that, there's plenty of introverted people that get up on stage and talk. One of the guys that I used to think was like, I'm never going to be as charismatic as that guy. And I find out that the guy is a massive, awkward introvert, right? And it's like you would never know because he pushed himself. And in every situation, there's always that example, right? If you're short, I know off the top of my head, just as I say the word short, I can think of a dozen guys that I knew throughout life that were like 5'4", 5'3", who did really, really well with women. But there's a lot of guys, there's another group of guys that's their victim, that's their get out of jail free card. Well, I don't have to try because I'm short. Well, maybe you should look and go, yeah, but that guy's short and that guy's short and all these other guys do really well. And they actually turn it into their advantage, So you always want to be aware. Is this true in every situation? Do other people, whatever you went through, is there somebody who recovered from this? There's somebody who overcame this obstacle, and you will always find there is. Focus on them and not on being a victim. So number 4 is being uncomfortable with uncertainty. So I mentioned this idea of emotional quicksand a couple times. And one of the other reasons that guys fall into emotional quicksand is this right here. They're uncomfortable with the unknown, right? You meet a woman, you hang out with her, things are going well, you start to like her. And then there's this period that is uncertain, right? Will this turn into something? Does she like me back, right? Will this relationship progress forward? And that right there is what I call like the gray area. That's the part you don't know. You don't know what's going to happen. But when you're uncomfortable with that, when you don't have that, it kills your inner game, because what happens when you're uncomfortable with uncertainty? You try to make things certain too soon. You start acting really needy. You start wanting to hang out with her all the time because you want to lock that down, right? You mentally go, the more I hang out with her, I'll be locking it down. I'll know that she likes me. Or you need that reassurance, right? You call her to check in with her because you can't handle that uncertainty. Does she like me? Does she not like me? The same thing happens to a lot of guys when they approach a woman for the first time. They want to start a conversation, and what happens is you go to start your conversation with her, and in your head, especially if you've been studying dating advice, you're like, man, I gotta flirt with her, I gotta use the triangle of attraction and build a connection. And you go into it, but right away you're now in that gray area. You say hi, you start the conversation, and now you don't know if she likes you. You're in this gray area of uncertainty. So you want to get out of that gray area as quickly as possible. And what do most guys do? They go, well, I just want to be liked. So they just go revert back to like, hey, where did you grow up? Oh, cool. And they go into like friend zone guy mode because that gets them liked. And being liked, at least they know the outcome now. Whereas flirting with her, like that outcome could go a dozen different ways, right? She could turn and go, hey, I'm married, and you feel awkward. It could go, you could spend 25 minutes talking to her and then she's not interested. You could in your head go, maybe she's like giving her friends the help me eyes right now and I don't realize it. Like there's a lot of uncertainty. The guys that are the absolute best with women, guys that I always use Rob Judge as an example, is he's really, really, really comfortable in that gray area. In fact, he thrives on it. He loves being in that area where he doesn't know what's going on. That's the enjoyment, right? And, we do this in other areas of life, right? If you've ever been in a situation where let's say you wanted to take a leap, maybe change jobs or maybe start your own business or start buying, investment properties, right? And again, there's that uncertainty. Will the new venture work out? If I start a new business, will that business succeed? If I make an investment, will that investment make me money, or will I turn out to be? And that uncertainty prevents you, and a lot of times, either from taking action, or you take action and you can't handle it, so you give up too soon. I know a lot of people that they wanted to start businesses, and they started them, and then there was that uncertainty of, oh my God, I don't know what my next paycheck's gonna be, and they immediately gave up because they can't handle that uncertainty. I mean, I remember when I quit my job 10 years ago to go full-time into what I do now, I remember back then I had the ability to, I was focused. I knew what I wanted to do and it was fine. But I had so many people that felt that uncertainty for me, right? My girl back then would always be like, are you sure are you sure that this is the right decision? Constantly. My parents, they couldn't handle it, right? And a lot of negative people will drill that into you. So you always have to be conscious of it. But, one of the best ways to really combat uncertainty is to switch from, the finish line to the process. So what do I mean by that, right? So the process is everything that happens in that uncertainty. So another example that I will give is in the financial realm is, I remember I bought my first investment property and I had not wanted to do it. I had feared the uncertainty of, man, I don't know anything about repairs, right? I'm not a contractor. I don't know anything about plumbing. I don't know anything about managing tenants. I had all these doubts flowing through my mind. And finally somebody said to me, they go, yeah, but you're going to learn it as you go, right? And you're not ever going to know the result before you start. You're never going to know the result before you start. And that's true for an investment. You're never going to know if an investment is going to succeed or fail. You're not going to know if a new business that you start is going to succeed or fail. You're not going to know if a woman that you want to try to attract is going to wind up attracted to you or not. You don't know. So you can't be attached to that outcome. You can only be attached to the process. So I mentioned that Rob Judge thrives on that uncertainty because he thrives on the process. He loves going into it and having to learn to think on his feet with a woman. He loves to push new buttons in her, right? To test out new things, to have fun with it. Same thing when you start a new business. It's like the process of starting a business, no matter what happens with that business, teaches you things. It changes you as a person and ultimately builds your inner game, right? So the key to inner game is actually being comfortable in uncertainty, because the more comfortable you get at something, the higher your inner game goes, right? The guys who are really good with women, it's because they're very comfortable around them. They've done it, they've pushed themselves through it, so now it's natural. And like I said, when guys go, when does this become natural? It's like, well, the more you push yourself out of your comfort zone, the more natural it becomes. So focus on the process. And now the fifth secret inner game killer is settling. Okay? And we all have settled in some area of our life at some point, and we all know people who have settled. And there's a lot of stories that we tell ourselves when we settle, but the reality is always there, right? The truth is always in our gut, and as long as that truth is there, it will always sabotage this, right? Every time that you know that you're not living up to your potential, you're sabotaging your inner game, right? It never fails. It's just because you know, if you're with somebody that you're not really into in dating, and you know that, you're kind of telling yourself, well, I don't think I can do any better, right? I'm settling. I'm not going to do any better. Same thing with your job. Same thing with, you know, your career, with anything, any aspect of your life. If you are settling, it is destroying your inner game. So there's one mindset that I want to give, and this one mindset actually will help you in all of these, right? And there was a book about this by Carol Dweck. And there's actually, so in life, there's two mindsets. There's the fixed, and then there's the growth, right? And if you have a fixed mindset, you essentially believe, I am who I am, right? I am who I am. And if you're good at something, you want to stay good at something because it's your identity, right? It's your identity. So you don't want to challenge your identity because not being good at something anymore makes you, you know, it challenges this, right? The fixed mindset. Now, the other mindset is the growth mindset. And when people ask me, well, you know, you've changed a lot over the course of your life, right? Over the last 15 years, I've made changes in all areas of my life, my dating life, my financial life. I went from being flat broke to being a millionaire. I went from being very shy to, you know, having tons of friends and having a great dating life and having friends, you know, what happened? How did you do it? And I go, it's all this, right? It's all because of this belief that I have that personality is not, it's not fixed. It's not permanent, right? You can change it. You can change any aspect of it. Any of the 5 silent killers that we just mentioned, any of those things can be fixed. If you are a victim, you can figure out ways to not be a victim. If you are afraid of uncertainty or you have a lot of inhibition, you can fix that. If you crave approval and validation from people, you can change that. All of these things can be changed, but you have to have this mindset that they can. And you always meet the people that can't. And no matter what you tell them, right? No matter how much they look at somebody who's made the change, in their mind, they still think, yeah, I just can't do it, right? I know that you quit your job and you started the business and you were successful. And I know that you were able to lose, you know, 100 pounds but that's just you. I'm not like that, right? But the reality is that the people that are most successful in any area of life, this is the one thing they have in common. There's been tons and tons of studies on the kids that, you know, that grow out of their situations, right? There's been studies of successful people. It all has to do with the growth mindset. So one of the things that I created, I have a program that I would recommend checking out. If any of this is stuff that, you know, impacts your life, it is called Unshakable Inner Game, the Self-Confidence Blueprint. Because in that program, and there's a link for it below, I give a lot of tools that I personally use. Like I said, I've had a growth mindset. Luckily, you know, a lot of disadvantages that I was born with, right? I was born introverted. I was born but the one advantage that I feel like I had was this idea that I can change, right? I will not settle. I can change any area of my life, right? And I have. I've done it in my health. I've done it in my financial life, and I've done it in my dating life. I've done it in my social life. And it was a journey. And what I did was I packaged together sort of a training program which what I found was really, really most impactful. And also it's very much geared towards women, right? It's about inner game, because a lot of the self-help stuff that I found over the years was very much like being happier and being this and being that. And it didn't really deal with this idea that my inner game was affecting my relationships with women. It was preventing me from actually meeting women. And how could I develop that? How can I develop inner game specifically in the context of the dating game? And that's what this program is. So if it's something that you want to check out, there's a link below. You can read all about it. There's a variety of different things that we go over in the training program. If you like this video, make sure you hit like, hit subscribe, leave a comment below, and let me know what you think.